Welcome back to our Cael language series. Today we're going to continue writing the essay that we began a couple of weeks ago for the long writing section on part 4 of the Cael test. So this will be our third episode that will help us to practice our essay writing skills. Now we're going to start with just a very quick recap of what we've done up until now so that we can build on and continue the writing today. So we are working from part 4 right here from the Cael test, which will always ask you to complete a piece of long writing, like an essay. We will have 35 minutes to write the entire essay, and we absolutely must use information taken from both the reading passage and the lecture that we've heard on the Cael test itself. When we write about these ideas, though, we have to use our own words. We can't just copy words right from the source material. And we have to achieve at least 250 words. So the Cael test will tell us how many words we're typing as we go. So we'll know when we're just about ready to finish off with this essay. The readers are going to give us a score based on how accurately we've described the details that we're learning about, so the content. We're also going to be assessed based on how well we organize these ideas into proper paragraph and essay structure. Our language will be assessed, so we need to make sure we're using academic vocabulary and also a nice range of vocabulary and words as well. We don't want to just repeat the same expressions over and over. And last but not least, part of our score does come from how well we've incorporated information from that source material into the essay itself. So the question that we began a couple of weeks ago now asks us if scientists should go back and reanalyze established conclusions and facts, or should they spend time on new questions and new research instead? So we're being asked to explain our position. So this means we need to pick one of the two positions established here in the test question. So when we started this question a few episodes ago, we decided we would support position number 1. So our entire essay is going to prove that it's more important to revisit past theories before we move ahead with new research. So once we've established our position, we have to build an argument. So what that means then is we need to consider, from the reading and lecture that we've heard, we need to consider the reasons why we feel, in this case, that the past would be more important to reanalyze. And once we've pulled out those maybe two main reasons, we're going to spend some time providing support. So this is where, again, we go back to the reading passage and the lecture notes on the test itself, and we want to have at least 2 specific examples for each paragraph or for each main reason that we write about on the test itself. So this is what we worked on, again, a couple of episodes ago now. We created an outline. So when you start writing your essay in part 4, I would encourage you to take about 3 or 4 minutes to write down what you're going to discuss and how that's going to look, how it will be organized. So our position reminds us at the top that we are focusing on writing past theories, writing about past theories and facts and how that's more important than forging ahead into the future research. You can see we've already thought about 2 main reasons why we feel this way. So the first main idea talks about how there are personal biases that often distort the truth. So we went into the reading passage on the test, and we found 2 very specific examples that show how people have these biased ideas and how, again, that might not lead to accurate depictions of history as those stories are passed down. The second main reason why we feel that the past is more important to reanalyze is because that sometimes there are faulty ideas with these past theories, and once we fix those mistakes, we can more accurately understand the world. So when it comes time to write about this second main idea, we're going to draw from the listening lecture that we heard on the Cael test. There were 2 theories here that will give very good examples of what we're discussing. And then, of course, at the end, you would offer a very brief concluding paragraph that would summarize the main reasons why you feel this way and what you talked about. So last week, together, we wrote the introductory paragraph. So this is where we present our position, which again is to reanalyze past theories, and also the 2 main reasons why we feel that way. So you can see them here at the end of this paragraph. We're going to state how biased viewpoints will distort the truth and how we need to fix these faulty ideas to better understand our world. So if you've not yet had a chance to view the previous 2 episodes, I would encourage you to stop this video right now and go back and have a look. It will walk you through how to accurately structure your introduction and how to gather your ideas. So we're going to build on now. We're going to continue writing this long essay in the Cael test by writing that first body paragraph with that first main idea. This is where we're going to use information only from the reading source. So again, this is the section that we're going to then write the paragraph about today. So when you're actually typing out this essay right on the test itself, you can click on this reading passage tab at the top of the screen, and it will reveal that reading passage that you've already read through and answered questions about on the test earlier. So it should be very familiar to you at this stage. You do have a scroll bar here that you can use to navigate up and down if you're looking for specific details to use in the writing itself. So here again is our position. We know that we're supposed to be supporting the importance of reanalyzing the past theories. And today, our main idea that we're going to discuss is how there are personal biases that distort the truth. So these ideas are taken directly from our outline. So to get started with the writing of this main paragraph here, we have to consider how we're going to connect this main idea back to the position of the essay itself. So everything we write about throughout the entire essay always has to support the importance of going back to the past. So I think to connect these 2 ideas here smoothly together, we can create a cause and effect situation. This is probably one of the easier ways to get across this idea. So let's start by introducing our main idea about the personal biases, and we'll connect it back to the importance of going to the past again to uncover those mistakes. So we say here, personal biases often distort the truth, so historians should review past theories to gain a more accurate perspective of events. So I think that states our case very well. We're going to put that at the top of the screen here. This is what we call our topic sentence. So that means that every single paragraph that we write can only have one main focus. So even though the entire essay is going to support the importance of returning to the past, this particular paragraph that we are writing together today can only provide examples of personal biases. All right, so that's why we call it our topic sentence. It introduces what this particular paragraph is going to contain. So now, after we've got our topic sentence included here, it comes time to give the examples that we thought about from our outline. So here they are at the bottom, just for reference. So we've got 2 specific examples from the reading passage. So let's start with the first one then. All right, we're going to return to the reading passage on the test itself and find that paragraph that talks about how the Greeks viewed the Persians as the other or as the enemy. So again, when we created our outline, we already viewed this paragraph. So this will be a quick review again as you're typing out your essay. But you notice we're back on the reading passage at the test. And skim reading through this particular paragraph, let's remind ourselves of the main ideas that we're going to use to write out this paragraph itself in our own words. So I've highlighted on the screen in yellow the main ideas. When you write the test itself, unfortunately, there is no tech feature that will allow you to highlight on the screen. So you're welcome to take notes with paper and pen, or if you just simply have this paragraph facing you as it is now, and you start typing on the right-hand side of the screen, hopefully you'll be able to navigate back and forth to find the ideas that you need. So I'll just read out loud here the ideas in yellow, just to again remind us of what we're writing about. So it says here that history should not be seen as fully objective. There are personal biases or less objective accounts. Those 2 expressions mean the same thing. And then the Persians, we're told, were viewed as the other or the enemy. And these historical accounts come from ancient Greek historians. So there's more than enough information here to get across the first supporting detail, the example of this personal bias that might not be true. That's what we're trying to write about today. So let's break this example down into 2 different parts. I think we can do this best in 2 separate sentences as we write out this paragraph. The first part's actually quite easy. We're just going to quote what the Persians were referred to as by the Greeks. So we have here the other or the enemy. So when we write that down into the draft paragraph that we're typing, you see here we've got, for example, Western political views often portray Persians in a negative light, describing them as the other or the enemy. So I've just used mostly my own words there to get across this idea. You notice we started this entire sentence with the useful transition, for example, and you'll be doing that quite a bit as you write out your essay. Now, one thing I will point out is you'll notice that the words the other and the enemy are written within quotation marks. This is really important. So when you are taking specific terms like these from a source material, it's really important that you place those words within those quotation marks. That's telling your reader that these terms are not your own words, that they do come from somebody else. So you're giving credit back to the source. Now on the Cael test, we're going to paraphrase, we're going to use our own vocabulary as much as possible. But in this case, those two terms, the other and the enemy, we can't paraphrase those. Those were the exact terms that the Greeks used to describe the Persians. So again, that's why we're quoting in this case. You should not be quoting too much though in your own essay. Please keep that in mind. You're going to impress the readers more by using your own vocabulary whenever it is possible. So here's our example. This is just the example of the personal bias. We're going to return to that reading passage, and now we're just going to connect the dots, as we say. We're going to put it all together. So it's great that we've given an example of this personal bias, but remember the entire purpose for writing this essay is to show why it's important to go back and uncover these personal biases. So we're going to use this idea to express how these historical accounts that have been passed down are coming from the Greek people about the Persians, so they might not be entirely accurate. So this is how we're going to incorporate that idea. We've got, these impressions may be misleading, however, since many historical accounts of the Persian people were passed down by ancient Greek historians. Okay, so we're starting to paint that picture why it's important not necessarily to believe everything we've read about in the past. And again, that's going to impress upon the reader the importance of taking a second look at past theories just to make sure that they're absolutely accurate. All right, so I feel like we've done a pretty decent job here of fully explaining this first detail from the reading. We've given the example of the bias with the Greeks' account of the Persians, and explained how these ideas can be quite misleading. So we're going to move on now to the second detail that we found already and noted in our outline. This is the part where the Greeks actually conquered the Persian people. And as a result then, they exaggerated their own cultural significance in Europe. So remember, we've already looked at this paragraph as we created the outline, but we'll review this paragraph again from the test. So we're back on the reading passage. And we pulled up that same paragraph that we've already viewed before. So once again, I'll highlight briefly here in yellow some of the important ideas, and we're going to paraphrase these ideas to integrate them smoothly into our paragraph. So here we're reading about how the Greeks won decisive victories over the Persian people. And later on, we read that Greece emerged then as cultural and philosophical center of Europe. So because they won, basically, they're now able to present themselves, the Greek people, as being more significant throughout history, right? And that makes sense. The party that has the most power is usually the one that's free to tell whatever tales they want. So we read at the bottom here that, of course, then, these accounts given by Greek historians heavily influence the perceptions of the time. So we have to question once again, are these accounts really accurate? Or are we just hearing these over-exaggerated accounts of power given by the Greeks about themselves simply because they won the battles? So we're going to try our best to summarize those ideas here in our own words. So you see here, we've got, since the Greeks won significant battles against the Persian emperor, they were free to share personal accounts that admonished the vanquished Persians and exaggerated their own importance. Vocabulary there is quite academic. I'm quite proud of that sentence. Let's see. You know, there's one detail here, going back to the text. I think there's one detail we should add. just because it's really quick to do so. Looking back at the text that we've just viewed, I noticed that we started with a particular time or an era way back in history, going back to 480 and 479 BC. I think it actually would be helpful to include that particular preposition of time within the writing itself, because remember, the entire purpose of this whole essay is to impress upon the reader the importance of looking at past theories to reanalyze them. So if we can actually anchor this example and let them know how far back in the past it actually has gone, I think that's just going to support our idea even more and certainly make it easier for the reader to notice the importance of returning all that way back in time to look at these past accounts. So we're just going to insert that little preposition of time there, or that prepositional phrase right in the middle. So it now says, since the Greeks won significant battles against the Persian emperor in 480 and 479 BC, they were free to share personal accounts and so on. Now, I remember from reading the reading passage earlier on the test, there are other examples of the Greeks defeating the Persians. So if I had all the time in the world, I could go back to the reading passage and pull even more examples and supporting details out. But remember, on the test itself, we've got 35 minutes to write a 4-paragraph essay. So I think given that we've already got 2 specific supporting examples here to show these personal biases and how they start to mislead us and paint an inaccurate perception of history, I think we'd better move on, finish off this paragraph, and then move on to that next body paragraph, just to make sure that we finish this entire piece on time. So again, we finished our 2 supporting details for this paragraph. The very last thing we must do is add a concluding statement. So your final sentence in a paragraph generally summarizes the main idea or the main point that you made. So sometimes it's easy just to go back and have a look at your opening and sort of express the same idea, I guess, using different words though. So let's try this. We've got, only by reanalyzing past conclusions can modern historians uncover subjective accounts and form a more accurate depiction of past events. So I feel that summarizes our topic sentence quite well. But before we leave it, before we move on to the next paragraph, let's do a very quick check here while the vocabulary is fresh in our minds. Let's make sure that we're happy with the academic nature of our vocabulary and also double check that we've got a nice range. I worry as I look at the screen right now that I've used a couple of phrases or words a few too many times, and I'd like to revise them quickly before I move on and forget all about them. So let's start with the topic sentence and the concluding sentence. Again, these 2 sentences should convey the same meaning, but again, expressed in different words. So in yellow here, you can see this is the entire position or purpose of the whole essay. It's really called our thesis statement. We're trying to prove that it's important to review past theories, as we've stated in the beginning. In the bottom, we've said the same thing, but we've used slightly different words. We've said reanalyzing past conclusions. I have used different words. I have repeated one though. So really quickly, just again, it's so fast to do this. I've got a synonym for the word past. So instead of saying past, in my last statement here, I'm going to revise that and say previous. It means the same thing, but I've avoided that repetition. So it's not a hugely academic word, but it's different. And that's the purpose I'm trying to meet here right now as I proofread. So we'll leave that alone. I think that's okay for now. Let's now look at the topic of this paragraph. So remember, this paragraph talks all about the personal biases that exist by people from the past. So in my opening, I introduced that as personal biases. In my closing, I use the words subjective accounts. Those 2 phrases mean the same thing. It's my vocabulary and I'm happy with the way that turned out. So I'm going to leave it and move on. The last thing I want to check once again is that cause and effect relationship. So in my opening here, now in blue, I can see that the whole point of going back to uncover these personal biases is to gain a more accurate perspective of events, I've said. In my conclusion, I have said to form a more accurate depiction of past events. That's too similar, I think. I'm looking here at my phrasing. I've used these expressions identically, right? More accurate, more accurate. Can I think of a synonym for the word accurate and even change perhaps the ending of the sentence. Let me try something like this. In the ending, perhaps I can say, it will more precisely depict past events. So you know what? I've actually varied my vocabulary more and I've condensed my idea. It's less wordy. So overall, I think I've improved that enough and I can move on. Once again, it might not be perfect. I'm sure if we had all the time in the world, we could go back and scour this writing and look for other ways to improve the vocabulary. But given our time frame, we'd better move on to make sure we finish. So last thing to check would be the sentence structure, making sure it's academic, making sure also we have a good variety. So let's take out our laser pointer again and just have a quick glance. So our first sentence, starting here and finishing here, I've used, this is a compound sentence. It's a simple conjunction, but I have established a cause and effect relationship. So I'm happy with my word choice and I'm going to move on. This transition is effective. You'll use it, I hope, at least a few times throughout your writing. So for example, and then we come up with our example of the biased opinion. This sentence, I'm really happy with my academic structure. I'm using two different conjunctions. I've got the words however and the word since in the same sentence. So we use the word however in this case when we're trying to set up some sort of a contrasting idea. So the whole point of this is to say, well, we've got these opinions from the past, but they might not be entirely accurate. So that's why this word's being used. And again, we're connecting the rest of this idea with the word since as well, again, to show how the ideas relate. That idea, I think, is well explained. I have used the same conjunction here, but I think, again, I don't want to take too much time to change up the structure. It is complex. All right, and again, in this entire sentence, I'm noticing my very academic vocabulary. Words like admonished, vanquished, exaggerated. So I think the academic structure here more than makes up for maybe a repeated conjunction here. All right, so again, I don't want to take too much time doing this. I just want to change things that are glaringly weak, or perhaps that will be a simple way to fix. Last but not least, I do have a compound sentence. Again, it uses a simple conjunction, but my structure is different. You know, only by doing this can we do that. So this is a different structure that I haven't used up above. It's not following that typical subject, verb, object structure. So again, I think I'm quite happy with the complex or sentence structure and variety that I've demonstrated here. So I'll leave that for now. If I've got time at the very end and I'm finished early, I can always return and revise a bit more. But for my first draft, I think we're fine and ready to move on to that second body paragraph. Again, just to make sure we finish the whole piece within 35 minutes. So let's recap what we've done today. We are going to stop there for today. I think that's quite a bit of writing for one episode. But let's just recap what we did to write this body paragraph. So the very first thing we do, of course, is look back to the outline. We've taken 3 or 4 minutes at the beginning to actually write out the ideas we want to use. So now it's almost like a copy and paste. We can just take those ideas from the outline in our own words and use them to write the paragraph itself. So always introduce your topic. There has to be one main reason or one main idea that you're trying to support. And in this paragraph today, our main reason was all about how there are personal biases that will distort the truth. That was the focus of this entire middle paragraph. Once we've established that topic, we then want to find at least 2 very specific and relevant examples from the passages themselves, the source material. So the 2 examples we came up with happen to come from the reading passage. So that's fine. We'll just make sure we use the listening passage in the next paragraph to balance out that usage of the source material. We always have to paraphrase our ideas unless we are quoting a specific term. So throughout the paragraph we wrote today, remember, we did use those 2 terms. We took the other and the enemy, and we put those within quotation marks within the writing. And that's because those terms were very specifically used by the Greek people as they referred to the Persians. So that was okay, but everything else was paraphrased. There was no need to quote anything else from the text whatsoever. So you're only going to quote sparingly. You need to make sure most, if not all, of the passage is written in your own words. And last but not least, proofread your work. Make sure that the vocabulary does avoid repetition. So you want to vary the words that you use to demonstrate a nice range. And also your sentence structure too, and the vocabulary need to be academic. So we did take a quick moment to have a look at the sentence structure, and it seemed to be pretty academic as we went through. All right, so we're going to stop there for today. I think that's more than enough writing for one episode. Next week, we're going to continue writing this essay. So we'll be focusing on using information from the listening lecture on the Cael test in order to write the next paragraph in our essay. I'll see you then.